Hey, I'm Kimberly with Elixir Mentor. Jacob recently added recruitment services to help companies hire pre-vetted Elixir devs. I help with company outreach, so if you're hiring, I may be reaching out, or you can connect with us anytime at elixirmentor.com.
Secure your Elixir apps with Paraxial IO. From code analysis and bot defense to dependency checks, they've got you covered. Elixir first design with GitHub integration. Elevate your security at paraxial.io. Testing. What's up? I'm Jacob Blitzo, your Elixir Mentor, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Elixir Mentor podcast. This is where we discuss everything related to Elixir, from interviews with enthusiasts, pioneers in the community, to innovative projects and libraries shaping Elixir's future. Today, I'm joined by returning guest Michael Lubas, founder of Paraxial IO, where he's building comprehensive security tooling for the Elixir ecosystem. Michael, thank you so much for joining me again. It's good to have you back. For everyone that might not know who you are, you want to just do a brief introduction?
Oh yeah, thank you. It's great to be back on the show. So not too long. My name's Michael. I've been an Elixir developer for years now, and I've also always had an interest in security. And I've been able to connect with a lot of people in Elixir, learn what everyone's working on, and just get to see what a fantastic community it is. So it's great to be back on the show today.
I have a hard time keeping up with your updates. I feel like you guys get a lot out the door. I'm so curious. I feel like a lot of my conversations are all circled around AI, and I think your perspective on the amount of code being generated now by LLMs, how are you seeing that affect like your space?
Yeah, it's interesting because Paraxial.io as a company, one of the problems it solves is, hi, we've written some Elixir code and it's going to be deployed on the public internet. And then obviously people are, attack anything that you put on the internet, kind of a fact of life about cybersecurity and modern software. So Paraxial was started before ChatGPT was even released. And then all of a sudden there was this massive adoption of AI coding tools. And it's interesting because in some ways it's very big and there's very big changes. And in other ways it's the same. And what I mean by that is even before AI, you as a developer really should have been scanning your code, scanning your vulnerabilities, scanning the dependencies, checking for security problems before AI. That was just a very good idea, period. After AI, when people are now generating code, with their favorite tooling or prompting, I know there's kind of differences between kind of the typing in a prompt and then getting a whole function or getting a whole feature versus kind of like the autocomplete. But I think in either case, developers don't perceive it as secure. It's really not secure in a lot of ways. How people use these tools, like the code being generated nobody thinks it's safe. Like you can kind of debate back and forth. There's studies where it's like, oh, we observed like a 24% or like a 50%, but like the methodology, you can go back and forth on it. But I think, business leaders, developers, everyone kind of knows in their gut, yeah, like this thing was generated, like this feature was generated with AI. Like go double check it because there's probably some issues in it. Nobody really disputes that at all. Even there was the very famous recent news story from Coinbase where the CEO fired people for not using the AI tools. And they were very big on this metric of how many people or how many lines of code or what percentage of the code base was AI generated. But even in that blog post where, the company says, okay, AI generated code in production, that's a good thing. We think that's a good thing. Even in that blog post, they were like, we also have robust controls to verify the formatting and quality and security of that code. So even people who are the most pro AI code probably that you'll find in the entire industry are still like, yeah, we're not going to put this stuff into production without security scanning it first, which makes a ton of sense.
Right.
I mean, you can debate their other merits of that blog post, of course. I don't want to get into that really. More of the point that, yeah. And the tooling to do this, like take an Elixir Phoenix project, for example. The way to do things securely is very strongly encouraged by both Phoenix and by kind of patterns that you see in the community. There is like a very safe pathway to do things. I would compare it sort of like, coding like a secure application in Elixir and Phoenix, or using Ash with Paraxial. It's sort of like, walking or driving along a highway with very strong barriers, like concrete barriers. Like you really have to go off to get in a problem, especially when you compare it to something like, the NPM flavor of the week, kind of which is really more like walking a tightrope. Just Elixir gives such better tools and such better ways to do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, you almost have to go out of your way to make your Phoenix app insecure. Especially,
yeah.
And then Paraxial just, backs me up and makes it a little easier to sleep at night.
well, and this is my point with all of the LLMs and stuff, where there are, because I find security problems in Elixir projects for a living. So I see it very frequently, kind of what goes wrong. And it's funny because of the same mistakes that people make, I see the AI make the same mistake as well, which kind of makes sense. Because
it learns from us, right?
Yeah, it's based off of, and the code that it's trained on is not secure. This is like a common misconception I see, where people think, like pre-AI, like code was secure, and then we got like AI coding tools, and then suddenly code was not secure.
No,
and
we
it's
were
like, no,
copying and pasting from Stack Overflow.
Yeah, it was like never. There's no like magic. People have this weird. I don't know. Like maybe cargo cult is the wrong word, but they have this weird belief that like there's this magic well of like brilliant programmers who never make. Like if we could only train an AI on like Linus Torvalds' brain, then like it would write zero. And it's like, no, that's like not how any of this works at all. Like every single like major software project of any significance that had a huge number of security problems, and the AI was trained on that. And then there's kind of this like cope that I see mostly on like, not on like programmer podcasts, but if you watch like more like Silicon Valley, like VC podcasts, where they're like, oh yeah, like the AI does not like write secure code now, but we like threw more GPUs at it, or we like prompted it in a certain way. And we said like, you're a very intelligent, like high IQ programmer. And then it like magically wrote, it's like, no, that's like,
you got to stroke the LLM's ego to be smart.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I mean, that is, I think that if your fund is dependent on these tools writing code, maybe you genuinely do believe that, but it's like, there's no basis in reality for that at all. That like, you're just going to prompt it and the code, and I'll give like a concrete example because maybe people think I'm too abstract here. Here's like a real example from an Elixir project. There's a type of vulnerability, remote code execution, which is like the worst case scenario possible. Like that Equifax breach that was like hundreds of millions of dollars. It was like 20% of their annual revenue. That was like a remote code execution. It grants the bad guy like XSH access to your production. So that type of vulnerability can happen in Elixir through what's called a binary deserialization exploit, which is where you're taking a term, like when I say Elixir term, I mean like a tuple or a list or, just like a data structure. And then let's say you have a data structure that's like not JSON, but some really complex, maybe custom data structure you wrote, and it's on one computer and you want to send it to another computer. Well, you can't just like pass that data structure to like an HTTP client because it's got to convert it to an HTTP request. So it's got to serialize it. And the safe way to do this is really JSON, but what you can also do is what's called term to binary, where you just take, let's say like a nested map list thing, data structure in Elixir, and you just convert it to binary and you send it across the network. What a bad guy can do is instead of encoding like a list or a tuple, he could encode a function that's like connect to my SSH server, and that's how you hack the server essentially. Okay. Go into like your LLM, like person watching this, if you're curious about this, and be like, hey, I have this like arbitrarily nested Elixir data structure that doesn't cleanly convert to JSON. Can you, the LLM, find a way to convert this to like send it across the wire? And I'll be like, oh yes, of course. You want to use Erlang's binary to term. Then say, I heard about on a podcast that this is really unsafe. How do I do this securely? And the LLM will make the exact same mistake that I see most people make, where it will say, oh, yes, of course. What you want to do is use the safe option of binary to term. Or in some case, it'll say, oh, yes, of course, it's not safe. We have to encrypt it first, because then once you encrypt it, it's safe. And this is completely wrong, but it's like
because it still be decrypted and be the same thing.
It's like, it's completely wrong, but like, it's the exact kind of mistake that you would see like a human kind of make. But the other thing is there are instances in code, like the Hex project, like the people that do the Hex project are very smart, where they have non-executable binary to term. And so what they're trying to get at with the prompting thing is like, oh, I'm going to prompt it to code like Chris McCord or something. But the problem is most of the like Elixir and Phoenix code out there isn't written by Chris. It kind of, you know, it's doing this like statistical convergence. So it's kind of my belief that that's like, it wasn't trained on secure code. These things are not designed to generate secure code. They're designed to generate like what a human would probabilistically generate, which is not secure code in most cases, because that's what we just write in most cases. So that's where I'm sitting, like kind of my view on the whole situation.
Yeah, I'm loving these tools, right? For at least like making myself more productive, but there's not one thing I let it generate without looking at the code. You know, I'm not blindly pushing things to production.
Yeah, would you send an email without reading it?
No, it'd be
like
what? I mean, some people do, and then they leave the LLM like response like, this is a good response because, and
let
you're
me
like,
know
oh
if
my
you
gosh, dude. You don't do that. Just read it. Why? Like, and just write the email so it sounds like you. Like, I don't know. I'm getting
it's
over
like you'd rather hear the prompt of like, what prompt did you feed it to write this?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
that probably has more information in it.
I'm sure you see that stuff all the time with hiring and things. If you're just seeing just like generated emails and,
you know, yeah, and it's funny too because the AI companies themselves have put policies in place with candidates that you shouldn't be, you know, just typing in a button. And it's actually funny too, because I remember maybe in school this was where, you know, people would say you have to write in a certain style. It has to conform. But now we're in a part where if you send an email and it's obviously not in like a perfect style, like there's a spelling error or your prose a little stilted or it's kind of direct, people are like, oh, this person actually wrote this. It's almost
you
like
enjoy seeing that.
A sign of authenticity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree 100%. Like I'll do like form emails, right? Where people know their auto response generic emails, but anything where I'm responding personally, no way. I do a proofread, but I don't put it through an LLM.
Yeah, I think
I used to for a minute, and then I was like, I don't like this because I was changing it anyways because it uses words I would never use.
Yeah, and then people don't really trust you at that point too. I do think that there's been a bit of backlash against the AI generated code. Some people I speak to are very in favor of it. Some people are just like, no, I never want to use this. I think that, you know, when you look at people like Jose and Chris, they have their own projects with AI now. I see that as a very strong signal that, you know, it's not nothing. There's clearly something there. But it's funny because with Paraxial, when like ChatGPT and everything first got really big, I saw a lot of security companies kind of trying to cram like an LLM into their product. And well, I think we all saw this with across the entire
the hype train, you know?
Yeah. What I've actually found though is that this ties into the Phoenix 1.8 release with the security documentation, is what is actually useful, I think, when you're coding, and let's say you have a vulnerability, is prompting the LLM with, hey, here's like what this like back to that earlier example with the remote code execution, like here's what this vulnerability is. This is like the official security documentation. If user input is being passed here, it's a true positive. To fix it, use this use this alternate function or do this. And then this is like how you verify. Like that information is really valuable. Like, for example, when generating a fix. At the same time, I haven't really seen LLMs, like Claude has this feature now for security review. And the problem is it's not really deterministic. So people are like, oh, we ran like the security review and we got like 4 different reports, and each report had like a different number of vulnerabilities. So it's like, oh, we just kind of don't trust this at all.
We've been like playing around with Claude Code for like PR reviews, and there's so many false flags with it. It actually ends up being more annoying because you're verifying that it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
makes sense too, because when you tell it, do a security review, I feel like the gut feeling I have, it takes the information and goes, okay, like what is a plausible sounding vulnerability?
Yeah, like it wants to find one, period.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like it will fall for every trick question, because the goal is not to say like yes or no accurate. It's almost like to generate like what it thinks you want to hear, which is very good in a general case, which is why LLMs exploded in popularity. I realize security review of code is an extremely, and I'm actually surprised it is as good as it is in some security tasks, but it's not this like magic, cure all. It reminds me of a paper that I think it's actually funny. Claude Shannon himself wrote a paper saying that he thought information theory essentially was a bit overhyped, saying like, guys, this theory is very powerful, but it doesn't apply to everything. You can't just apply it to every field and expect like magic results, which I actually never thought about that before this conversation. But it's kind of interesting.
We actually like on my collects team, when we first started, like when like Claude Code actually was like decent, right? We had a whole conversation around that our PRs were getting sloppier, and that we need to spend more time making sure that we're writing good code. Like, so it was a conversation,
So after you adopted Claude Code, it got worse.
Yeah, we were picking apart PRs more, like little nitpicks that just shouldn't get into code base if you wrote your code, Like it likes to use conditionals and case statements over pattern matching and just like things that aren't the Elixir way. And so you would be like, why are you doing it this way? Like, why are all these things so nested? And you'd get like the credo, errors and things like that.
Yeah, you kind of would have to like maybe feed it to, and then it's like a whole like agent loop. And then you're like, can I just write this myself?
Right. Sometimes like it's just quicker too, right? I'm like on the fence. Sometimes I'm really impressed with it and I go back and forth, but
I think that's what is so realistic about this is, for a while, I think it was like in the 6 months or so after, like when Devon was launched, that was kind of peak hype.
That was such a big hype train though.
Everyone was like, oh, like our jobs are toast. But then like the reality of it kind of sets in after a bit.
It's like the Primeagen always like keeps tweeting. They said we'd lose our jobs like in 6 months. It's 6 months. And he keeps like retweeting his tweet saying that I think we'll still be here. And it's like, we're on like 2 years now of them telling us our jobs will be gone.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially because I think, especially for the Elixir community, the labor market is a lot of like software as a service. At least this is what I see from my end. I know there's kind of like nerves with IoT. And then I think there was a famous example online after a Microsoft layoff. One of the TypeScript core devs was looking for a job, which sounds insane on the surface, but at the same time, the labor market for programmers is kind of reflective of market demand. Like I know people that do very deep research in, like edges of computer science, or I've met people that did like physics research and lasers and things. And they said, yeah, like the market for that stuff is grants. There's not really much, organic market demand for that when you compare it to the need for JavaScript and front end and, just business software, essentially. That's where I see kind of a lot of demand for Elixir programmers specifically too.
Yeah. Well, and like what I like to tell everyone too is one, I'm not really seeing software devs disappearing, right? But also this is a really good time, like, because I'm not a good front end developer. I'm not good at UI design, but like with Claude, I'm decent now and I can actually create my whole like I'm a full stack developer and I can create full products. So like get out there and build your SaaS, like, you know, your part-time job, build a good product, and like hopefully you can get to a spot where you're just your own boss at some point.
Yeah. Maybe because I went through this, I'll give my perspective, which I think that software people, because I did this, tend to massively overestimate the importance of that and underestimate the other parts of building a business,
100%.
which
Build
is
it like
yeah.
when you're a software developer, building the product's the easiest part, right?
Yeah, it's sadly not it's not really there are businesses that do a lot of revenue and employ a lot of people, and coding an application is like not even part of
No.
what they do. They can get by on phone calls or like some Salesforce monstrosity or like a Word, and it sounds awful, like, but there are businesses that just kind of run off a WordPress site, and it sounds like terrible to an Elixir developer.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like they're completely separate. Like the market demand and then what you code. That's what I've seen. Just like from my and this is speaking as somebody that like started coding before he figured out a business plan and learned
Dude, I've done this so many times. I've created amazing products that never saw the light of day just because I don't know. I'm not good at sales, and maybe I'm too lazy to want to be good at sales because it's hard. It's a big jump.
Yeah, and cool, because I went through this very painful process where like the first launch of Paraxial, nobody really bought it at all. Nobody wanted it, which is a very painful lesson to learn.
It is. It hurts.
So the thing that really got everything going was it forced me to go out and like talk to people and figure out what they actually needed from a security tool. And that kind of got me on the right path. And this is like generic entrepreneur. This is absolutely nothing really revolutionary. But the big kind of learning thing was that, like what you said, you can start coding and people think, oh, like a meditation app makes a certain amount of money per month. That meditation app is often the output of a business of people who, work on deals and partnerships and are building sales funnels and like they're targeting specific audience. It's like you're kind of seeing like the tip of the iceberg of what the business is. As everybody that tried to like code a social media site quickly learned, the kind of value of a social media site is the users, not the front end technology.
Right. Yeah. It's a tough pill to swallow for sure. Like I built an entire, what got me into Elixir was building Perfect Form, which was like a marketplace for fitness influencers and like a workout app, but also a marketplace. So one, I picked like the hardest thing to build is like a double-sided marketplace. And then just realizing how hard it is to get people to use your product. Because like you're like a lot of developers, at least like at the beginning, you're like, if you build it, they will come. Not true. Not true. So yeah, you learn a lot of things, but that's why I think like right now it's really good because you can kind of practice and do side jobs, right? You can build a product and slowly get a user base, build a user base on the side and not have to depend on it, but you get through all those hard learning curves. Because I'm always one that like jumps in too soon and then it's stressful financially and then you can't even focus on the business because you stress about your personal finances and things like that.
Oh yeah. It's sort of, I would say AI is definitely a multiplier in that way, where you can you can do things that you couldn't before much faster.
Hmm.
And I think that's where people are kind of excited about the productivity gains.
Hmm.
If you're an Elixir developer, it probably wouldn't be that surprising if you saw like zero productivity gains at your day job. I really wouldn't be surprised by that. When PCs were first adopted or computers were adopted in business, there was kind of a similar story there. But at the same time, it's you'll notice productivity gains in other areas, like you said, kind of building front ends and designs. And you kind of prototype faster,
Hmm.
or kind of do things in a new way, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then, of course, everyone's also terrified of security.
Right.
For
Well,
all of
and
these things.
large code bases, your just context would be too big, so it's really hard for an LLM to grasp your project. Like you have to, you know, pick and choose parts of the project you want it to mimic if you're adding a new feature or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, that's the impression I get with a lot of these very quickly growing, kind of like rapid AI prototyping. Is that I almost feel like AIs are really good at rapid prototyping because there's so much content online about that.
Hmm.
So it's like a magic demo, like it coded a website in a minute or something.
Right. Like it does the small, easy stuff. Like I've messed around and had just like vibe coding live streams for fun, right? And we've
Yeah.
built really easy Phoenix Live View projects, but it's like nothing at a production level scale with, hundreds of thousands of users.
Or that's the other thing too, is even if you have a small user base, like pick any software as a service company today. That software that you see right now is the product of like years and years of iteration, which
Mhm.
is absolutely impossible to achieve without like a customer incident where something went wrong and they learned from it. Like you can't predict the future. So that's another thing that I see kind of lost for people. Or this is just something I see online where people are like, "Oh, like I could code Twitter in like 20 minutes," and it's like the most insane statements ever. And it's like
Yeah.
it's not a like front end like app. It's a whole system of like serving ads, and there's like a media play, and like people they don't understand the complexity of like
And
kind of a
just the amount
yeah.
of like API endpoints or socket hits they're getting per minute or second, like the DevOps and scaling end of Twitter is what's impressive. Same with like Facebook and Meta.
Yeah, yeah. Um, where I would say I am optimistic about AI with entrepreneurship is that I do think it gives people kind of the confidence to get started with their projects,
Hmm.
especially when you're kind of in this gap where I actually think the most fun I've had with AI was like I wanted to code a game in C on like my Mac with like the OpenGL framework. Like I'd always been kind of interested in 3D graphics programming, but like it's very intimidating to start,
Hmm.
especially if you don't have a background. But with like prompting Claude, you can create like a 3D game of like Pong or something like that in a few minutes. And you're like, oh, I can just like sit down and read this and understand. And I thought that was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, that
Um,
is really cool.
but that's the cool part. It's kind of like the fact that it generalized. Of course, I doubt that it's not going to be able to code a AAA game, but kind of similar to the conversation we just had, a AAA game is not really code. A lot of it's more storytelling and game design and voice acting. But for some reason, programmers just don't see that.
Yeah.
I saw this one talk where the guy was like, "Oh, like Skyrim is just like a software project," and I'm like, "No, it's not. It's like a massive, like almost like a movie production,
I
and
know.
you just weight the software really hard because you're a software developer."
Yeah, exactly. Like the impressive thing is like the back end of like MMO games and things like that and the traffic they can handle, but still that's like such a small portion of what's actually happening in a lot of games. Like you were saying, like storytelling is huge.
Yeah, it's arguably much more important. I think Fallout New Vegas is one of my favorite games, and it's probably the worst coded game I've ever played in my entire life.
They
Vampire,
usually are, especially a lot of indie
yeah,
games. Like they'll be so well done, graphic side, storytelling side, but
yeah.
then functionality, they're horrible.
Yeah. There's other example. I think Kenshi is a game like that, or Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is a funny example because I think it came out the same day as Half-Life 2, which
Okay.
was this like super I don't know how old the listeners of this podcast are. Like the
They're
average age.
usually like 35 to 45 are
Okay, so
podcast listeners. Yeah.
we're hitting the demographic of people
Yeah,
who probably
yeah.
played like Half-Life 2. It was like this very polished, it's like a classic Valve game. Like it's very polished and perfect, and they play. And then there's this really buggy game, RPG that I loved called Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. It was like extremely buggy and janky, but like it's beloved to this day because the storytelling and the atmosphere and the ambience was so good.
Yeah.
But just like very different in terms of overall projects.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're doing the Elixir game developer podcast.
Yeah. We're gonna pause real quick. I'm gonna run a little ad and then we'll be right back.
Good.
Hey, I'm Kimberly with Elixir Mentor. Jacob recently added recruitment services to help companies hire pre-vetted Elixir devs. I help with company outreach, so if you're hiring, I may be reaching out, or you can connect with us anytime at elixirmentor.com.
Right now. All right, and we're back. We'll take that break up to kind of like pivot because I feel like we're doing a rabbit hole, which I love good rabbit holes. But I'm curious to know if you're leveraging like LLMs or anything on like the Paraxial side or any kind of security scanning, or is it like completely off limits?
So I'm not off limits to the technology at all. I don't think it's good to just refuse kind of based on like a reaction. Because I think a lot of people do that where it's like, oh, AI is bad, I'm just never going to use it. Especially when you're running a company, you just can't have that perspective because, when emerging technologies come out, they very often change the entire business you're in. At the same time, maybe this is a bigger picture. Now that vibe coding is kind of hit, you would think that there would be this like tremendous demand for security all of a sudden. But I find that cybersecurity typically, it takes a while, like especially big cybersecurity. Elixir developers and companies I've noticed tend to be much more open to new technology. I mean, they're using Elixir. And they're very smart about this. They'll kind of think through things very intelligently, and they'll say like, how can we use this really to benefit ourselves? So what I'm seeing when I talk to new customers right now, for example, is they'll say, yeah, we're using AI or we're evaluating AI. We definitely want a security check. We want Paraxial in the pipeline, scanning things and helping developers. And I think where they see the value is not as like, oh, Paraxial is like another LLM, because that doesn't really make any sense. Where it makes a lot more sense is having Paraxial kind of give context to the LLM, where it's like, here's a finding, here's the expected severity, here's how if you verify if it's true or false, here's how you fix it. In some cases, there are vulnerabilities that are just completely avoidable, where it's like, hey, you're using this dangerous function, but for no reason at all. Just use the safe function. It won't impact the business functionality, and you're safe. Like you won't have any findings. So that's where Paraxial customers, I would say, definitely see the value of it. And I think that they're justifiably concerned about security too. Everyone I talk to kind of has a similar narrative of we want to do more when it comes to security. Like we want to check our Elixir code. We know that the risks are sort of getting worse every year. 10 years ago, I think a data breach was kind of the worst case scenario. And now it's gotten worse, where it's a ransomware incident, where your entire company is shut down and somebody's extorting you for cryptocurrency. You can't even continue operating.
Dude, I know a nasty story with ransomware. It was it was a CAD-based company. And basically one of their sales guys was using pirated software, like something silly, like Microsoft Office or something that he could have gotten a legit copy of through the company, but didn't. And put ransomware, and then they had a shared admin password to their servers. So they got that password, and then they got into their servers, and they waited just long enough to be out of date with the backups. So their ransomware was infected throughout all their backups, and then they locked them out. And it was like a pay us or you won't get it. And it was like it took the person I knew working there, it took them a month and a half to fully recover everything without paying the ransom. But
Do you remember what year this happened?
it would have probably been, let's see, it's 2025. I want to say it was probably like 2022.
Yeah, that tracks, because I think NotPeta was kind of the big global incident, but this was like a new thing. I would say this is like the biggest cybersecurity development in my lifetime. Is definitely ransomware, and the fact that it's very organized, and that people really go after. It's interesting too, because it's not a new problem from a historical perspective. You can find, I think, pre-biblical writings about piracy as an issue for international commerce. But, sometime in the 21st century, it flipped over. Most businesses don't have to worry about, naval piracy, but now they have to worry about people extorting them, through their information systems, which is just going to get worse. It's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, no, it's wild. Like, and I know we've talked about this. Like, I know enough to worry about security, but I don't know enough to like that. Like, I use Paraxial, and I'm very thankful for it because I like to depend on tooling that I can trust. Like, you've been in the weeds with security practically your whole software development career, right?
Yeah, so, even pre like in college and stuff. Yeah, and it's funny because there are these like kind of weird beliefs that crop up. I see people develop strange kind of misconceptions about cybersecurity, or they treat it as this like, oh, it's like magic knowledge that only like certain hackers have knowledge. Like, and it's not the case at all. It's usually very it's very much possible to keep yourself secure and avoid incidents. But I liken it more to almost like exercise than discovering some kind of dark book of secrets or something.
Yeah.
Like there's no magic secret to get in shape, or it's usually just people don't want to, because it's like a lot of hard work. There's tooling to help kind of get you on the right path. But at the end of the day, you also have to kind of make the decision yourself to accomplish something.
Right. I think like the problem is it's hard to stay up to date on everything.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Not only like frameworks changing, like security risks change, everything like changes so often. And if you're not like solely focused on like a particular like niche, it's like, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, not only that too, but a lot of the information out there is just wrong or bad. Like a big motivation I had with Paraxial, and I get this feedback a lot, is they're like, oh, your blog post was like very helpful, because a lot of information out there is just like, well, now it's like LLM generated blog spam, but even pre LLM, a lot of the information was wrong. It was just blog spam. So it's almost like people are like, oh, this is like AI slop now. But I remember even before ChatGPT, like a lot of security advice that you read on the internet was also just slop.
It'll be like really interesting to see if we see the stupid, useless, like, because everyone was making blog posts, right, for SEO.
Yeah.
And so no one wants to write a blog, so they think they can do it the lazy way. And I've been guilty of this with like other businesses, but because I just don't enjoy writing. But now with like LLMs, people are going to ChatGPT and Claude instead of Googling. So it'll be interesting to see the new shift of like, I forget what it's called. Someone told me, but it's like the LLM SEO version. Like people are making their websites like optimized for like LLMs to crawl them. And I forget the name for that, but it'll be like, I feel like that will be better because it'll probably weed out a lot of garbage.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when I will ask an LLM for, maybe guidance, because a common request I get is like, hey, I have an Elixir application. Like, what is the first thing I should do just to kind of reduce the risk? it's funny because if you go online, you kind of search that and you're like, what do I do to like secure my web app? And it'll be like, enable HTTPS and like enable content security policy and like check your secure. And this advice is just not very useful at all. But it's funny because it's like a common misconception pre-LLM. And then now if you ask it, that kind of shows up in the training data and it'll be giving that exact same advice. And I'm like, it's not quite right, because when you ask for this kind of advice, what you really want to be is in like a conversation with a person that not only understands the material, but can put it in the context of your situation, which an LLM can't have that unless you type out like a very detailed prompt of everything. Dude, and even then it's just not as good at the moment.
I've been talking about this with a couple guests now. I think Mike Hostetler was one of them that kind of sparked the idea. It's like really cool because you can, like Paraxial, for instance, could create a security LLM, right? That you could actually have those conversations with.
Yeah.
And like, that would be really cool. Cause I've been thinking it'd be kind of cool to consolidate like all my videos that I've ever made and have like an Elixir mentor LLM, and you could ask it questions and I am kind of answering them, but I don't have to, cause I don't remember what I recorded yesterday. And so every time like a YouTube comment comes up, I have to like go watch my video and be like, either like if someone's like questioning what I taught, be like, yeah, you're right. I probably shouldn't have done it this way. This would be better. But like, I don't remember what I did, guys. Like take it easy on me. But like, yeah, it would be really cool. I think it'll be really cool to start seeing like industry specific LLMs.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm both optimistic about AI. Like, I think it will get better, but at the same time, from where I'm sitting, I'm like, oh yeah, like AI coding, that is not secure at all. It's actually kind of a good thing for Paraxial, because every new inbound I seem to get, the people are concerned about that. I didn't expect it to play out this way. I don't think anybody predicted this, even in the AI world.
Yeah, I'm curious. So like you were saying with like vibe coding picking up, that you're seeing less people concerned with security at the beginning. Do you think it's just like a knowledge thing, like people that don't know that there's security problems or potential issues? Do you think it's
I would
naive?
I would say it varies, because there's very different types of software development. You know, somebody coding a brand new Firebase or Superbase app that they are like launching as their kind of side project, that is a very different type of software development than somebody writing Elixir for financial transactions.
Yeah.
Or at a big company, or picture somebody writing software for an airplane. You know, these are like completely different domains, but they all kind of get lumped together. So the area I would say I focus on specifically at the moment is like businesses that are using Elixir in production for kind of web application services. Those people tend to be very intelligent. They're experienced software developers, so they kind of know what they're doing, but they're not security experts necessarily. And they kind of get a lot of value. They're always very interested in security, which is something I love too. Compare that to, you know, there's kind of these like public shaming incidents where somebody's like, oh, I vibe coded my app and it got hacked. And everyone kind of dances around them on social media. That's not really happening at big companies because they typically have a robust security pipeline in place already, where they would be able to catch that kind of thing. But at the same time, there is this risk, which I think you mentioned earlier, where at your company, you said the quality of reviews kind of went down, where we might see people kind of think less about the code they're writing and about the security implications of it. You know, I know people might call me a Luddite for this opinion, but there's this really famous quote that I think Thomas Edison had on his desk or at his lab, where he said, you know, like, man will go through any I'm butchering the quote, but he'll go through anything to avoid the labor of thinking, where all we really want is to like type in a prompt that says like, you know, code me something that will solve my problem right now. Like we don't want to think about it in a lot of ways.
Dude,
and that's just humans.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope too, because I'll catch myself just like prompting way more than I should, and then I feel like I'm losing my edge of like being able to think and write my own code, which I think it's a fine line. Like, do we just become really good code reviewers, or do we continue to write our own code?
And the interesting thing to me too is that the kind of existing tooling, like Paraxial as a product, has been pretty similar between like pre and post AI. But it's just been really valuable because I actually did this whole thing where I wrote like a guide to Soblo findings, and the intended audience of that was like a developer, where it's like, hey, here's a Soblo finding for SQL injection. Like, here's how you verify it. Here's how you fix it. And my plan when I was writing this was, okay, this is going to be great. Developers are going to love this. And then the AI thing happened. And I'm like, oh yeah, this also works with LLMs because they're kind of like a human in that way, where you can
Hmm.
explain it. But like, I didn't predict that. I don't think anybody
Yeah.
predicted that happening.
No. No, I like honestly, I blew off AI for quite some time because it just like didn't work well. And then I don't know, maybe 6 months ago it started being something that was actually a useful tool. And then yeah, then you go through the learning curves of not depending on it too much, and you have to have like new standards on coding projects to make sure you're not letting slop in because yeah, it's easy to get lazy like you were just saying.
It's also a very narrow, I think, application for it. It's not surprising that Cloud Code and similar tools blew up so quickly because, like, who's going to adopt AI? But I think there was this like, I might be remembering this wrong, but I think it was like it was from Anthropic, and it was something like beauty professionals are like using AI more than software developers, or like, okay, maybe
Interesting. What are they using it for, I wonder?
I don't know exactly, but I used to work in consulting. Right out of school, I had like a consulting job where like you fly around the country and they put you on projects. And I don't think consulting firms are actually like a very good place to work, especially if you're technical, because it's very high level, and a lot of the advice I found like wasn't very useful. Like you put together like a PowerPoint of very generic advice, but you're like some kid out of undergrad. Like, the CEO of
Hmm.
the company is probably not going to listen to you or care what you have to say because you don't actually know anything. But it's funny because when ChatGPT took off, I'm like, oh yeah, like if I still had that job, I would be using ChatGPT like every second of every day,
Oh,
because kind of
100%.
writing like shallow, plausibly sounding advice is the job of a lot of consultants in corporate America. And I,
Hmm.
I know this sounds very cruel or like maybe mean, but like if you actually talk to somebody that has that job, they will not object to that characterization of
Dude,
it
I know a lot
at
of
all.
guys, like I think especially like because I'm guessing like you went to school for like computer science or engineering of some sort, right? So I think we saw a lot of the same things, and I had a lot of friends that weren't very technical, but they were like on technical consulting teams like that where they were traveling all over, part of like huge, they ended up being like glorified project managers, but they had very like you would assume they're like deep level programmers by the way they describe their jobs, and they're not.
Well, but that's the kind of like the point of consulting. Like it was funny. Management consulting is like this too, where you're not supposed to be technical. Like they almost don't want that. Like the whole point is to kind of see the bigger business picture. And I think that the kind of gold standard for this would be like when Steve Jobs came back to Apple, and he kind of like axed all the product lines, and he's like, hey, we're going to focus on these, like, I think it was 4 core products, and it like saved Apple. And that was
Hmm.
brilliant. Steve Jobs, not a literal, he wasn't writing like Java or something to save the company, but he was like, and there's a famous clip of like an engineer at the Apple event that's like mad at him about it. And he's like, you don't know anything about this. And Steve's like, yeah, I don't know anything about your project. That's true. But I know that if we kept your project and we're all splintered as a company, the company's gonna fall over. So that's what I think that consulting firms kind of aim for. But in reality, I'm sorry, like a kid out of undergrad is not Steve Jobs. They rarely have that
Yeah.
kind of insight. I think it's possible. Like obviously, there are situations in corporate America where like a company is going to die because the people in charge are just not willing to adopt to changing trends. But it's a bit of blind leading the blind, I think, when you bring in someone that also doesn't know anything about the industry. The people that you'll find that know a lot are typically just working at a smaller company that's about to overtake them.
Right. When I was in the manufacturing world, I did a lot of like programmable logic controller stuff and just like vector drive controls.
Yeah.
And the experts that could, like, if I ever had issues, the experts that came in were far from experts. Like, I ended up having just to go through documentation and tons of trial and error to usually solve my own problems. And then I remember one time I found kind of like an edge case bug with like vector drives for basically like offset follow like timing between two drives. Anyways, it doesn't matter the details. They brought in like they had like one expert that like actually was like technically sound.
Yeah.
And he would fly all over the world to like solve problems here. And I discovered a new problem he never found, but then like us together actually solved it. And like it's wild to me how many like people I had to go through just to like find someone. Like it took months to solve this problem. And it's manufacturing, like you don't have months. It was like very annoying.
That's interesting though. I think that reflects like what you kind of just see in industry too, where guys like that are extremely rare, and probably the problem you found was also rare. It's like their day to day is just trying to keep the business afloat.
Right, exactly. And like, yeah, it's funny. Manufacturing's hard, guys. Software's where it's at. So if you're building stuff, be thankful. But yeah. All right. So I feel like you kind of said you don't use AI in Paraxial.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I would say I use it very frequently for testing, prototyping.
Okay.
I do a lot of work kind of ensuring that developers can get the install working quickly or that it will run quickly. So it's like, for example, for Paraxial, like, yes, I have a Claude Code subscription. I use it constantly. It's not for writing kind of like critical backend code though, but for, maybe prototyping like some like new vulnerabilities or like a new project where I'm like, okay, just generate this Elixir project. It's never going to be deployed on the public internet, but I want to make sure that even if like this thing and that thing are all messed up, like can a developer still install Paraxial and get it working? Because like code that faces the public internet, the security of that is extremely important. But if you're developing a game locally or if it's for testing or kind of playing, it's great for that.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I'm curious. Have you adopted usage rules? Because that's a pretty cool library that Zach put out with Ash. Have you checked it out at all?
Usage rules in Ash. I haven't seen it yet. What is that? If any listeners
So it's
also want
like
to hear?
it's basically you add like how everyone has their Claude MD or Agents MD file.
Yeah.
It's like your particular Claude MD file for like the Paraxial dependency. And then so
Oh,
like
I see.
you can do like usage rules.sync and then it pulls all the dependencies you have that use it into your Claude file essentially. Or like so it tells your LLM how to use your dependency. It's really cool.
That is pretty cool. And I think that'll get adopted very quickly too.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to have that just through the Paraxial dependency directly.
Right. That's
so I
what
can-
that's what you can do with it. Yeah.
But yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, and I'm very optimistic to see the Elixir community kind of embracing AI. I think that especially when you have kind of an emerging technology where Elixir is very much in a growth phase of adoption, being hostile to AI is probably a bad move.
Yeah, I think it's like it's crazy to see like people be really negative and push back with it because I feel like at the end of the day it's just like kind of part of the evolution. Like you always hear people like, well, no one's going to know how a compiler works or how to write code anymore. And like guys, like I'm an engineer and I struggle very hard without a graphing calculator. Like if, like when I was doing calculus and everything back in the day. But
I think there's an Isaac Asimov story where we forget it's like because of calculators. It's literally about that. It's not a new fear.
yeah. Every new big thing creates this spark of fear, like the next generation is going to be a bunch of idiots, but it really just opens the door. It just kind of makes us have to kind of know more. I don't think we simplify life that much.
Something I've always found kind of odd is that you'll see that the actual CEOs of, I think Jack from Twitter said this, and I think Sam Altman recently said this, where like, well, in Twitter's case, he was like, oh yeah, social media can be harmful. And in OpenAI's case, I believe it was like we're in an AI bubble, or that like the dead internet theory could be true, that a lot of what you see online is just fake, like you're not interacting with a real person, which is kind of sad, I think, because like, why would you decide to do this and then kind of adopt this like very negative framing? Because yeah, I mean, obviously there are like negative problems with AI. I'm not denying that, but I think that there's almost like this kind of sense of pessimism about technology in general. That I don't know if that's maybe like a generational thing where, you know, I can't imagine what it was like growing up during the moon landing or the Apollo program where, you know, you were so optimistic about technology. But back to maybe what you said about manufacturing, where today it does kind of feel like everything is just more, you know, increasingly digital. AI is kind of like the first like big technology breakthrough, I would say, of my life. I wouldn't count ransomware in cybersecurity. That's like a field specific advancement. I mean, in some ways it kind of is, but it's like not an optimistic one.
Yeah.
You know, I work in cybersecurity. It's a very pessimistic field because, you know, it's like people attacking you and trying to extort you. It's a very negative side of human existence. But at the same time, like I'm very optimistic because I see improvements in security. I actually view like Elixir and the Phoenix framework as a security improvement. If you're using these tools, you're less likely to get hacked. And that's a good thing. You can create something without it like being attacked. A lot of cybersecurity companies have this very negative view of you know, or even when you just go on the marketing page for them, it'll be kind of like the Matrix or something where it's like, oh, like we're the like 0-day hacker anonymous crew.
Fear sells, man. Fear sells.
And it is scary. I'm not gonna deny that. Like, yeah, like having your business get attacked and get extorted is not it's
not on your list of things to do today.
You obviously don't want it to happen, but I get a lot of fulfillment out of kind of helping businesses you know, fix the problems that they have, and then also not have to kind of live in this fear. Yeah, there's this funny kind of comparison I saw where you'll see like a podcast about like the dark web or like ransomware, and the person's kind of like telling a spooky ghost story or something. I don't know why it has to be that way. Like, why can't you just kind of, you know, discuss this thing like adults and kind of come up with a plan to stop it? It doesn't have to be this kind of like dramatic production.
Hey, I mean, I'm guilty of that. Like, because when I think of like security, you know, you're thinking of the, you know, the hacker with their hood up, hiding in a dark closet, right?
Yeah, it's kind of at the same time where it's like it is getting worse. Like the risk does get bigger every year. That's the hard part.
Do you think it actually gets worse, or are we just oversaturating the market with more products that are just kind of shitty?
No, it's 100% getting worse. For example,
like more organized and everything.
Yeah, like, I mean, before ransomware, it was actually really hard to make money off of data breaches. Like, it's like, oh, we hacked some medical records. And it's like, who actually buys that? Like, the market is not that big. Once kind of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and then people realized they could use encryption for this ransomware problem, suddenly like actual groups formed where it's like, oh, we can extort businesses for billions of dollars. And now that's a thing. And that's not a new human behavior. Like we talked about earlier, you know, piracy is always a problem. Like literal Navy piracy. But the reason it's just going to get worse is because the internet and AI and information systems are just going to get more important. You know, 50 years ago, I actually love reading like the history of banks and commerce and things and shipping, like old historical, like how did Ben Franklin travel from the United States to France? Like, he didn't have a cell phone or like a bank account where it was tied to a credit card. I was like, how did that work? And I love learning about like the reputation system and all of that. But I feel like people forget, especially the younger generation now, like, could you imagine a bank functioning without computers?
No, it'd be insane.
They did for hundreds, maybe even
I know.
thousands of years. Like, we had to have money and trade and commerce. Um, but yeah, it's like insanity. Or could you imagine not having a personal? Well, I mean, not just a personal. Could you imagine not having a smartphone today?
That would be wild. I
It's
mean,
just it's just
our
part of your
jobs, like our life and jobs are because of these things, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's just become so ingrained in kind of society and business and commerce, it's not going away. That's why I like cybersecurity. People sometimes will ask, like, "Oh, what would you do if like you didn't have to work anymore?" I'd still probably do cybersecurity.
You're gonna do
Um, I,
something. Like you'd
I
be
love it.
bored. I mean, I would be outside a lot more, but I would still do. I would do something like because I enjoy like this podcast doesn't make me money really, but it's probably one of the most fun things that I do.
That's
Just
good.
because I get to talk to cool people. And
Yeah, 100%.
one thing that is scary is the like AI generated videos and audio that's starting to sound really good. Like anyone that has, a few minutes of their voice talking out there can be like copied and reproduced into almost anything now.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, and like you get a phone call and it's like, "Oh, hey, like, it's your dad or something." It's like, "How do I know?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty legitimately terrifying development. And I don't think people expected it was going to get that good that quickly.
No. And like, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to like verify everyone's who they say they are? That'll be an interesting. I saw a really
Yeah.
weird thing with Sam Altman. I think it was like his Tucker Carlson interview. He was like, oh, you'll just have like a safe word that you share with your friends and family. Like, no, that's not secure.
Well,
That's not going to be a,
even consider, like, let's say you are texting like your friend, or like we're texting each other, and it's like
Mhm.
cryptographically verified over Signal or whatever. Okay, what if someone just compromises your account and is like
Right.
texting me, you know?
Yeah.
And if they have access to all the chat history, like that's not really true. It's almost like, oh, well, let's just go on like a FaceTime call and do like a quick verification. Oh yeah, there's AI generated video now.
Yeah, it's wild. Like, so like he didn't even have a good answer, and I feel like he's neck deep in this, and I feel like that's gonna be, the next big thing is like identity verification.
Oh yeah, yeah, I could see that. Um, and there's all these problems where it's funny because like from my perspective, like where I'm sitting, web applications are not even really a new thing. I think Amazon launched its bookstore in 1991 or something,
Yeah,
and then here
wild.
and then here we go in 2025. Web application security is very much not
They're
completely
they're
well.
they're just forms and CRUD operations still. Like nothing's different.
In some ways, I would say that the big changes have been like the frameworks have made it a lot more secure by default. But at the same time, like I'll do pen tests and I'll just like consistently find the same vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, oh, if I just look for this, kind of like I know it's going to be in there. Because there's also an element of creativity where you can kind of do whatever you want, and I think that freedom is good. But you have to understand security. I'm also shocked by how like I often make the assumption kind of everybody knows about security, because I'll talk to software developers who are very intelligent, who I respect very deeply, and they're like, "Oh yeah, like I know all of this CS theory, I know all this stuff, but I don't know what like cross-site scripting is."
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of like it's completely unexpected to me because you can explain it at a surface level, but to kind of understand something, it takes a long time. Like you have to kind of go through and experience it.
Yeah.
Just like I think this is applicable across a lot of different domains of knowledge where kind of like reading a description of a coding concept or a mathematical concept, it's like, okay, you can maybe memorize a definition, but unless you kind of work through it yourself,
Yeah.
you won't really understand. And then we can get into a philosophical debate about if like LLMs really understand what's
Yeah.
going on.
Well, I think like the wild thing too is like a software engineer, our knowledge is so vast. Like we get labeled, staff engineer, principal engineer, senior, mid-level, whatever it may
Yeah.
be, right? And you put these people that, passed a certain bar, but what they actually know between each other are like, it can be so vastly different. Like,
Yeah, and there's kind of like a communications gap of like,
mm-hmm.
what are you good at? Like what do you kind of have experience with? Um, it is very interesting. From where I'm sitting too, I think that businesses really want people with like a lower level, like they're kind of ideal programmers, somebody that can just kind of prompt something through that's not very. And when I say businesses, I'm actually not even really referring to like companies where the employees would be watching this. I'm kind of talking maybe about a larger, like think of like a massive organization where programmers kind of get treated as fungible units.
I mean, in a lot of situations, that is unfortunately the truth, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's this like tremendous drive to get costs down. And I think that's why there was so much optimism about like the LLM, like coding agents is going to replace developers because that's what every business.
You know what's really interesting too,
Yeah.
since I've been doing the recruiting stuff a little more and like talking to the people doing the hiring, it's very interesting because it's like two areas. They either want a very junior developer that they can train or
Yeah.
a very senior developer. And I always feared that like the junior positions will not exist. But now it's almost like the guys that are stuck in the middle, no one wants them because they feel like they've already learned the bad habits.
That's interesting. Because I feel like people are kind of have this anxiety about junior positions right now, but you're seeing demand for it.
Depending, like I see a lot more demand for seniors, but then like where I was surprised, it's like, well, if we're gonna go lower than a senior, like say it's just like budget, they'd rather take a junior on and have the training learning curve than a mid-level who they feel might just have a lot of bad habits.
Yeah, and I feel like there's this gap too in hire. Well, I mean, software engineering hiring is like it's like a whole. As you're learning probably very quickly, I
Oh
bet.
my gosh, dude. I kind of jumped in head first before I realized what I was getting myself into. But I also feel like I'm in a really good position to do what
That
I'm
is
doing.
good.
Like I'm doing the pre-vetted thing. So like you're taking the stress off because it takes a lot of resources in a company to like do technical interviews for software developers. And I'm kind of removing that. And then they just can focus on culture fit.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a hard part of a startup too. Is most people don't have experience hiring a big team.
Hmm.
That's probably one of the hard. It's like every problem in startups is one of the hardest. Like
Yeah.
there's no easy problem, is there?
Hiring's hard because like people it's like a relationship, right? You don't really know somebody until I feel like anyone can fake who they are for like 9 months, right? And then you learn all new things too once you like start living together or working together, like it's it's just I don't know. People are weird, man.
Yeah, from my perspective, I don't see the like need for teams going away. People are like, oh, like hey, like you'll be a one person company where AI will run
Yeah,
everything
no.
for you. I think that business, both internally and also, when you have customer relations, even if you're like business to consumer, there's like a very human element that I don't think that um, AI in its current iteration can capture it all.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of these startups where we're like, oh, we found like an AI to do like sales for you. And I'm like, that is probably the one profession I think is the most safe from
No,
AI
yeah,
is like
like
enterprise sales,
people
honestly.
want to jump on a call, see that you know what you're talking about, see that you're a person and that you're
Or just
personable and they actually want to work with you.
or just be listened to.
Yeah, same. Yeah, like I don't see it going away either. And then I also think like AI fatigue is a real thing because like you were saying at the beginning, everyone's trying to freaking dump an LLM or chat agent into their product when
Yeah.
it's not necessarily needed and it's annoying. Like I don't want to go through an operator tree trying to talk to a human that's like completely AI generated now and it's like you can't even hit zero anymore to get a
Yeah.
person.
I apologize to the listeners if they're like sick of AI and then this is like another AI podcast episode.
It's all, I mean, I think it's like, it's a good topic though, because one, there's like so many benefits. Like I've had so many awesome people on, like Chris McCord, and then like Mike Hostetler,
Yep,
and like even like Zach Daniel, like they're all like integrating AI in very useful ways.
that's good.
So I think like it's good to see those tools, right? And then like everyone I think can agree that like the hype train gimmicky flashy features that people are just trying to get like VC money from, those can go away.
Does your chat have questions we can go through?
um Not too many. Someone brought up Undertale being a really good game story wise,
That's a
but
good comment.
very bad coding.
I like the gameplay of Undertale.
Yeah, I can't say I'm familiar. Like, I'm like
It's like an RPG Maker game, so it's
okay,
not really
nice.
and there's like this bullet hell that's like the quote unquote combat, but that's kind of like the gameplay. It's very 2D.
Okay, nice. I unfortunately like I don't have I kind of wish I could embrace my old video game college day self, and I just never make time for it anymore. I want to.
I'm very pro video games. I think that they're good for people. I know,
Relaxing.
yeah, and I think I love video games growing up. I actually honestly don't play many video games these days. I don't have much free time at all.
Yeah.
But I never thought of them as this like negative, oh, horrible, evil thing. I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's I think
I don't
I
think
think
they're
it's a great way to
negative.
get kids interested in you don't let your child spend all day on the computer, of course. They might
Yeah.
grow up to be like a security engineer or something, but
Dude, I played so much. Like when I was in middle school, N64 came out, and all I did was play like GoldenEye and Bomberman and
I think
Mario Kart.
yeah, I think Team Fortress 2, I spent so much I probably spent too much time playing that game. And I think it's still around too. Like they still have the cert, like people still play it. It's got kind of a player base.
That's awesome. And then I remember like the first like MMO fighting game. It was called Tribes.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was such a cool game. It was Tribes, and then I feel like Counter-Strike was pretty close to that too.
You know what I think is interesting too is how maybe people that lived through kind of like this evolution of video games, like going from GoldenEye to Call of Duty or something, there was like so much advancement. And then I don't know, maybe since kind of like the golden age of Xbox 360, it's like the consoles kept coming out, but like the core gameplay loops kind of felt the same. Like
Hmm.
they remaster a lot of games now, and it's like, oh, like the graphics look a little better, like the GPUs got better, but they're even with VR, which I wouldn't say VR was nothing. I think that like I've played some VR games and they're pretty fun, but it wasn't like the revolution that people kind of thought it was going to be in some ways.
Well, and then I think it's funny, like we've made all these strides in graphics, right? And now the most popular games among like kids, like 12-year-olds, are these like is like Minecraft and well, I forget. It's like some gardening game. It's so weird. They just
Is
like
it yeah, I think I know what you're referring to. Is it Stardew Valley?
yeah, some and they're just like all these bad graphics games that people love, and it's like it's so funny to me because we cared so much about graphics
But
rendering,
that's the
and
thing. It's like it
it
doesn't
doesn't
matter.
matter as long
Look,
as it's a good,
like the
yeah.
art style, the gameplay loop. I think chess is one of the most popular games in the world right now.
I actually that's like the one game I'll play. Like I have
Yes,
a chess app on my iPad, and I just enjoy like playing from time to time. And I have a Steam Deck because I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start
oh,
playing
how do you
games.
like that? I was thinking of getting. I don't have one at the moment.
I like it, but I don't play it enough to actually like think it's
Yeah, I could see
worthwhile, you
that.
know? So I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. If I made more time to play video games, I would probably be on it all the time.
Yeah, the one I haven't had any time to play it. The one video game that I actually wanted to play recently was Cyberpunk.
That
Um,
does look cool.
Mostly because I think that they did a great job with the design. It's actually based off like a pen and paper role playing game, I believe, but
Okay.
it's just kind of like a unique atmosphere that you don't really get in a lot. I think most big budget games these days are just very derivative, and
Hmm.
it's kind of like this. You'd like to buy the new FIFA or the new Madden or something, but it was like this unique kind of big budget project where they went with like a not a completely new IP, but just something very different from like what you've kind of seen out there in the industry.
I'll have to pick it up. I've been tempted. Maybe that's the game that'll pull me back in to being a little gaming nerd.
I feel like maybe the demographics of this podcast is mostly people like us, where we like video games and then
we
just like
want to play, but
we
don't have, like, I have so much to do. That's the problem when I'm playing video games. I'm thinking about like the videos I should edit or a feature I should be building. That's the problem. My brain is just everywhere else.
Yeah, that makes sense too. And I often feel like I need to get outside and just get
that
off the computer.
Too. So you got to get outside. You need the balance, right? Mm-hmm. And like, I love to like get out and rock climb. I'm excited that we're, turning into fall and winter will be here soon, so I can get out and ski. But
100%. This is like the video games and outdoors.
I know.
We didn't really talk about cybersecurity very much.
What are some of the things that you've recently added to Paraxial? What are like the fun new features that you're excited about?
We got the 3.0 release coming up. I would say the big thing is the product has definitely reached a point where it fits very well into the workflow of existing Elixir developers. People kind of ask me like, what is Paraxial? How is it different? There's kind of like a ton of generic security tooling on the market. I think that's a very true statement, because most security tooling is very generic. Like, it's very forgettable. I think that the main thing that Paraxial is doing that's really special and interesting is that it's actually, made for an Elixir developer. It's made for the user. It fits in the workflow, or it'll fit in your like kind of AI, whatever AI tooling you have going on for yourself. And that sounds weird, because you're like, okay, well, aren't all like security companies that are doing code security, like, once you target that seems like kind of an obvious statement. And I kind of compare it to, think about the iPad. Like, there were tablet computers before the iPad, but they were just so bad. And I think the reason so much security software is also so awful is because it's not even made for a developer to use. It's kind of like, okay, here's like this enterprise security thing. It's made to solve this problem. And the problem is usually like a regulation that the company has to fulfill. So it gets sold on a golf course from, an AE at the security company to an executive at the company that buys it. And then no technical person is involved in that procurement process at all. Not to ramble about like the dynamics of the cybersecurity industry, but what I love, working with Elixir companies is that they'll come in and they'll be like, yeah, I literally talked to somebody yesterday that was like, we're paying for this security tool and it's extraordinarily expensive and it's awful. And, Paraxial will send you an email every week that basically says, here's all your Elixir repos. Here's if they've been scanned, do you have any outstanding vulnerabilities? And they're like, yeah, the really expensive enterprise tool we pay for can't do that. We have a guy that does that manually for us every week, which sounds insane, right?
That is insane. I'm guilty. I have to go through and update all my Paraxial stuff because I have a bunch of errors yelling at me on my dashboard.
That's okay.
But it's on my to-do list, so I'm excited I'll get updated. When does 3.0 come out?
Soon. It'll be out. I'll announce it to the Elixir community.
Okay.
But what I'm really excited about with it is that it gives Elixir developers the opportunity to use a security tool that was actually created for them.
Yeah.
Every security product on the market, especially ones that have taken VC money, they do not want an Elixir developer to be using it because the contract values are too low. Their target market is kind of like a Fortune, 100 company that can spend an insane amount on a contract. It's a very classic innovator's dilemma problem where they're all building for like this kind of enterprise target market customer, where Paraxial at the moment is very much aiming for an emerging market that none of the incumbents can really service, but there's like this tremendous need and really great feedback from everyone. And that's why I just love the Elixir community so much, is people are very willing to sit down and talk to you. You can communicate. There's not this there's these barriers or I don't know if you've ever been in like big enterprise software, but people, it's not where people are excited about the technology that they're using.
I've always been just a small startup world guy, and then like Collex is the biggest company I've been at, and I would still consider it a startup.
Oh
There's
yeah, it's a fantastic company. When I say
yeah,
big enterprise, I'm thinking I've
I
worked for
like
companies with tens of thousands of
yeah.
employees.
See, I've never done that, and I don't think I could. Like I don't know. There's just like there's a part of me that
I didn't last very long in that
all the
environment.
yeah. I don't know. Put an HR department in there. I might get fired.
No, I,
But
I I think you're doing great. And it's just so nice to be able to like kind of communicate with people that are very passionate about their work.
yeah.
Go on a show like this and kind of communicate with people. It's so good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And like my collects team, there's three of us on the back end team, and all of us are like hyped about Elixir tech, and we find new things, and like all we're doing is always like sharing things. And
It's so energizing. It's so nice to just work with
mhm,
people that are passionate about what they're doing and they're excited to go
exactly.
to work.
Yeah, exactly. And then the amount that I learn from everyone that I work with is wild too. Like, because I've never been on a project that, had 500,000 like monthly active users before. So I never experienced, poor performing queries, taking down an app and breaking things and timing out timeouts. And so I've learned a lot because you kind of take for granted if you only have a couple thousand users you have the power to have inefficient queries and things, and you don't even know you have them.
100%.
Yeah, so it's been a good learning curve, and it's good. I think like this is as big of a company that I'd like, and then startups are fun because you're just like in hustle mode, and everything kind of matters. All your decisions matter, and I like that.
100%. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to, connecting with you again, hearing about your experience with Paraxial. Thank you so much for having me on today. It was great, sitting down, being able to, just talk about whatever. Doesn't
Yeah.
always have to be
No,
work.
I mean, it's always fun catching up with you because I feel like you have a unique perspective on the
Thank
market.
you.
Yeah. And it's good. And Paraxial is a great product. I enjoy using it. It's easy
Thank
to
you.
use. And it's cool seeing one thing before we get off.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, I'm curious because, all right, so you have a Rails version of Paraxial now too, right?
correct.
What, like, what is the, like, how closely related are the two products? And, like, what are the different, like, security vulnerabilities you see between the two stacks?
I would say they're very similar in terms of how they're used in businesses, similar kinds of threats, similar kinds of attacks. The big differences really come down to kind of like code patterns, what kind of vulnerabilities you see in Rails. Like for remote code execution, there's a lot more deserialization that's more complex in Rails. But you also see the influence of how the two communities are kind of tied together. Jose himself was at Rails World, I saw online.
Oh, nice.
And I think that is kind of a very good summary of how the two communities are very close together in a lot of
Yeah, for
ways.
sure. No, that's cool. I love that. And any other tech stacks you're eyeing up?
I wouldn't even say it's about tech stacks necessarily. What I really want Paraxial to do is be the thing that helps developers with security, and for it to really fit in an intelligent way, because security tooling is just so bad, and I think it's just kind of insulting to your customers to force them to use something that's just really unpleasant. And
Hmm.
everyone knows this is true because everyone can think of a very probably well-funded company, or just they've been forced to use something that was just very bad. And it just doesn't have to be that way. Um, Praxial is doing very well just because I think that there is this tremendous demand for people just for quality and respect
Hmm.
from the, security company that they're working with.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah. Awesome, man. Well, like always, it's great to have you on. Where can people find you?
Oh yeah. For plugs, Praxial.io. I'm also very easy to get in touch with. I'm Michael Lubas on LinkedIn. If you are curious about, kind of security in general for your business, you're using Elixir or thinking of adopting it. If you go on the Praxial webpage and you just click book a meeting, that gets routed to me. So I'm very easy to kind of get in touch with. If you're listening to this podcast using Elixir, have security questions, I'd love to talk to you. Don't feel weird, or I know it's a little strange kind of reaching out to somebody cold. If you're an audience member, I'd love to talk to you.
Awesome, man. Yeah, Michael's very nice. So reach out, guys. Highly suggest checking out Paraxial. And you have a nice free tier as well, so people can kind of take it for a test drive too, right?
100%. There's a 2-week trial for a business if you're thinking of using it, or if you're an individual developer, like you said, free tier for non-commercial projects.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thanks again, Michael. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I know it's not our normal scheduled tuning or scheduled airing, and that's my fault because I got horribly sick when Michael was supposed to be on a couple weeks ago. So thanks for the flexibility. All right. See you guys.
Testing.
Hey, I'm Kimberly with Elixir Mentor. Jacob recently added recruitment services to help companies hire pre-vetted Elixir devs. I help with company outreach, so if you're hiring, I may be reaching out, or you can connect with us anytime at elixirmentor.com.